So I guess I start as all stories start. Once upon a time, in a land very different from this one, there lived a beautiful young princess who frolicked with the unicorns and who had tea parties with the elves, and who had her hair braided by the fair, fair fairies, and who wore clothes of lace and ribbon. And she was happy, and she was a true magical child, a true child of nature. And the princess had this gift where her heart sang to the hearts of her subjects, and although their ears could not hear it, their hearts picked up and rejoiced. So there was one in her kingdom, a hag of snarl and snee and glare and gleam, an evil old woman whose heart was locked away in stone and wrapped in chain and hidden in a dark, dark place where no one could ever find it. And it sickened her, the laughter and the happiness and the songs and the melodies, when the city rejoiced, when her kingdom rejoiced, for simply of her mere presence. So she figured if she was miserable, if she had to wallow in despair, everyone should suffer along with her, and their hearts should wither and die just like hers. It's only the right thing. It's only just that if I suffer, everyone else should suffer equally and in equal measure. So although she could not cast a spell on the fair princess, she could cast a spell on every subject in the kingdom. And thus she did. She cast a spell upon everyone's gaze, upon everyone's sight, upon the water, upon the sound itself, upon every item that bared and bore reflection alike, so that all they saw and all they heard was a prince. And she no longer frolicked with the unicorns, and she no longer had her hair braided by the fair, fair fairies. She no longer drank tea with the great and noble elves. And her heart sunk and sank into a depression. She stayed away, locked in her tower, only reading books of fantastical fictional lands of great towers of glass that would reach into the sky, scraping up against the clouds themselves, and with great horseless carriages that seemed to draw themselves along, and of cities strung in glowing beads and wire. A truly fantastical fairy tale. She took comfort in these books, until one day even they themselves no longer brought joy to the young prince's heart. And the young prince started to believe that his own life was a fairy tale, that he dreamt ever wanting to be a princess. It was a silly thought, a silly notion. So he went and decided to become the very best prince he could. He learned how to duel and sword play, play the instrument, follow his father's words of wisdom. A young prince should be able to go out into the kingdom and slay dragons and rescue princesses and do all sorts of noble and just acts. So the young prince went forth and grew older, and every year that he grew older, his heart grew colder and colder. The once jeweled heart that radiated such joy into the kingdom slowly withered away, and the sun no longer shone as brightly, and the stars themselves seemed to have lost their luster. And he went off to fight dragons, and learned that dragons are not vicious, just misunderstood creatures, and played many games of chess with them, using actual horses and actual great towers as pieces and pawns. And they played in great fields of rice and water as their board. And the young prince went off to save the young damsels in distress and rescue them from their towers. But every time he got up there, all he talked about was the affairs of the heart, and love, and music, and the beauty of the flowers, although they still no longer seemed to quite have brought him the joy they used to. So every time he would wander into a new city, he would send all the young lords to those towers, so that hopefully those princesses could be saved by a truly just lord. And one day, he bumped into an old woman, and the woman said, "Excuse me, princess, I am so sorry that I bumped into you. 1,000 pardons." And the prince replied, an astonished look. Eyes grew large. "I'm sorry, but what?" "I beg your pardon, young princess. You called me princess." "Why, yes, isn't that but what you are?" And the young prince said, "You can see me? It was not all a lie? It was not all a fantasy cooked up in my head? Oh no, a terrible, terrible curse has been placed upon you, and a foul, unjust deed has been caused upon you. So, the old woman, the sister of the wicked crone with snare and sneen and glaro and gleam, whose heart was locked away in stone, wrapped in cold, cold iron, truly just and fair of heart, noble old crone, gave her a mirror, presented it to her, and said, 'Look and gaze upon it.' And she did. And she saw a fair, beautiful young woman staring back at her. But it had been so many years. And the young princess asked, 'How do I know that this is not the deception, that this is not the lie? How do I know that this mirror is not the thing casting the lie, the deception, the untruth?' The old woman stated, 'Look into your heart and tell me that you feel this image being presented upon you is a lie.' And she did. And her heart wept. And her heart once again burst into life. And life once again rushed into her half-cold eyes. She felt herself living. And a smile that she had not smiled in many, many a year crept back onto her face. She felt warmth. She knew it was not a lie. Her heart had told her so. And the old woman said, 'Bear this image wisely and well, and bear it and burn it into your brain. For someday there will be someone who shall truly love you with all their heart, and shall see truly into your heart, and shall see past the deceptions and falsehoods, and have a gift to see past all the lies and half-truths that we represent in our day-to-day lives. And they shall see you as who you truly are, and not as the face is presented before me. But in the meanwhile, you have to bear this image in your own heart, or if you ever falter again, if you ever start to believe once again the lie presented upon you, forced upon you, the lie that everyone else sees as being true, no amount of magic, no amount of love shall undo it, and it shall become permanent.' So she did. So as all great stories, there was the once upon a time, and there is the end. And there is much more to this story. And it does end with a happily ever after. And I'm sure you can figure the rest of it out.